accurate and growing.
Podcast.
Dedicated to the underdog, cause I see you. Working on your craft, getting strong, cause I see you. Ready to set it off and on, cause I see you. Correcting all that is wrong, cause I see you.
So what up, everybody out in the virtual world. My name is Jesus Azteca 500 Sanchez, and in the building we have Rafael Navarro Jr.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you, brother.
He is a proud founder of Beats and Bars, which is a program that has functioned within Chicago Public Schools. He develops artists to produce, to record music, to become hip-hop artists. He also has started Loop Theory.
Yes, sir. It's a management company.
It's a management company, and he has some really talented people that are coming out of that.
Yes, sir.
He got introduced to hip-hop at an early age. He also has a degree that specializes in work with children with autism, as well as teens and behavioral health issues. And, ever since I've known him, we used to work at the same school.
Yes, sir.
And we used to pass each other all the time. I definitely wanted to link up with you, but I was so busy doing a whole bunch of
same, brother.
Craziness.
It was a common respect, but it was just things didn't align for whatever reason.
Yeah. And it was just I knew that you were on some.
Yeah.
I really wanted to build, but now we're in the same room and we're building now. So
definitely.
So I really appreciate you. I appreciate the work that you've done with young people.
Thank you, bro.
This is a little taste of Scheme.
Soy chicano, nacido aquí, born here, con sueños de allá, dreaming of there. Yeah, I am a child of this country, the steps in of another. Born a Chicano cause I am a different color. And there's no place I can really call my own. The whites never liked me and my people sent me home. So I am here in the bottomless well, free falling in a race that will never excel. The son of immigrants just following a dream that many follow, but they swallowed in the scheme of things. Cause ain't no promise in tomorrow. A lot of people hunger for the mighty US dollar.
That's what's up. Well, welcome to the 500 and Growing podcast. How did you grow up and what was your childhood like? Where did you grow up? I know that you said the West Side. But
yeah, for sure, man. I was born in Humboldt Park, so in the region, so right in the middle of Humboldt Park. Grew up like Bucktown, Wicker Park area in the early 80s, and then moved out to Hermosa in the early 90s, you could say. Just not the best of neighborhoods, at that time. But, my parents had came from Mexico a couple years prior to me being born here. So, again, you stay where family's at. We lived in the same apartment building than my other cousins did. Just you kind of fall where the rest of the family's at, whoever came over here, right? Yeah. And so, but outside of that, man, I had a beautiful family. I have a beautiful family. I've been blessed with a mother and father that have shown us by example how to just be decent human beings. I have three beautiful sisters older sisters that have also just have been examples of what women, should be. Great mothers, great wives in that way as well. At least for me, the way I see them. And I was diagnosed with a blood disorder at about 3 years old. So that shifted my life a lot. I was sick from about 3 to 11 years old. In and out the hospital. I didn't have like a regular school schedule because I was always in and out the hospital. But that made me appreciate life in general because I saw a lot of shorties at the hospital that had worse conditions than I had. Yeah. Shorties that were in the playroom one week and then the next week they weren't anymore, right? So you start realizing mortality a lot sooner than you see it in the street stuff, but then like seeing it like that is, it was a little bit. Even at that time, I could understand it in a way, even if I probably didn't fully understand it, but it impacted me more like when I would say, oh, what happened to that kid? And they're like, well, something, they're not here anymore or whatever. I guess the mentality was always like, oh, well, the shorties that are out there, even though I've grown to know different now that I'm older, they're choosing to be out there, right? So it's like it's by choice. So if something happens to them,
it's like a consequence.
Yeah, it's a consequence, right? So you kind of like, it's messed up, but But then when you see shorties who didn't ask for this, who are sick, who have leukemia, have other things, it was eye opening for me at an early age, right? To understand that there was other things, right? So then when I finally was cured from that at 11, I was very appreciative just to be here. And I still am. Like I always told myself anything after that was just icing on the cake. Like I'm good. So that is why I think I just have been as stubborn as I have with everything in my life. I always told myself I wasn't going to do anything I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to waste my time on doing stuff I didn't want to do. Like, again, I was left here. I was put here for something, right? Because I went through a lot when I was younger. I could have let all that get to me, right? My sister tells me like she remembers me being younger and like being depressed, right?
Yeah.
I don't recall that. I was too young, right? But she's like, I could tell that you had a lot going on. I was 5, 6, 7, like I don't know what's going on in my world like that. But she's like that she knew that I would carry heavy, so it's like I was going through that. And so I could have taken that and hold that as a grudge or be upset that most of my childhood was spent in like hospitals and all this other stuff. But I never saw it like that. I don't know. I just always was, again, grateful. Like I was grateful that my mom was able to take me to the hospital every time I needed to go to the hospital. We didn't live in a country where I couldn't get access to that. I was blessed that my dad had a job that he was able to get insurance. He couldn't go to every appointment with us because he was at, making making sure we had what we needed. But I mean, I was blessed to have support, from my family through all that. And it just showed me a whole different side of life, man, just honestly. I mean, it gave me a whole different perspective.
So you were real mature at a real young age?
I think so. I was quiet at the beginning. Like I was just to myself. I think, again, just understanding a lot of this that was going on to me. But yeah, I think just in general, my perspective on life was just very different. Like I was careful. I would think twice about doing certain things. I was just, it saved me from being a knucklehead sometimes because I would have to think twice. Maybe some of the dumb stuff my boys were doing, I couldn't risk doing it because if I got hurt, it could be they're jumping fences. I jump one of those fences and I hurt myself and that bruise turns to a blood clot. Now I end up at the hospital and I had to think twice about it. And I did dumb stuff when I was a shorty, but it made me think twice about certain things that was happening because I was like, wait, I can't, I could risk it. And not only that, but my real brothers, my real homies respected that and they understood that. They understood what I was going through and that made me, I guess now that I just love them in a way that I, now as we are grown men and they're still part of my life, it's just like that they accepted me for the 4 or 5 brothers that I had that still stuck with me. Never, now that I think of it,
questioned it.
Never even,
like, yo,
I would go, be out of school for weeks or whatever and I'll come back and it was just like nothing. Those were my boys. And so, again, it makes you appreciate those type of relationships because then you had the other kids who were like, well, you ain't never here. Well, now you here in school and what are you doing? And just picking on you because it's like I was out of 5 days out of the week, I was probably there maybe 1 or 2. You know what I mean? So then they're like, well, why is he not ever here? Why is, so I never really had like, at least early on, like no consistency. Right. Because it was always like, I could be good for a little bit. Then I got sick and I would be out for a couple of weeks and then I'll be back. Or if they had to do some treatments bro, I went everywhere. I went to Mexico. My mom tried everything. My mom and dad, we went everywhere to try the natural remedies. I mean, my cousins, my mom was just telling me last night, she's like, your cousins went, I don't know where, to some place to get some agua. I don't know what to bring to you. I mean, they tried everything under the sun for me. And again, it just taught me just how selfless your parents could be. I now as a parent could only imagine what my mom had to go through seeing her son. I would literally, every time I went, I would, get IVs and just this whole, a lot of treatments and stuff done. Like I could go with my daughter to a regular checkup and I took her to the dentist last time and I'm like, I had to do a little shot.
Bad.
Exactly. So now I'm like, man, my mom had to live that through with me. And again, at the moment, I'm not understanding that, right? But you're like, that hurts to see your child go through those type of things. And so,
for sure,
again, man, much respect to them. And so, I think it made me appreciate, just life in general. It made me a little more mature earlier on than maybe my peers at the time. And just an overall different perspective, I think, on life. And it also made me conscious of like a lot of times as I got older where people are like, oh, let's like, as far as once they get married or once they decide to have children or whatever, that it's just, oh, you just have a kid and everything's going to be great. It's like, no, it doesn't always pan out like that. My parents, to their eyes, they had a healthy child up until I was 3.5 or whatever. One day I woke up and my pillow was filled with blood and they didn't understand why. And then they rushed me to the hospital and they're like, oh, he has ITP and all this other stuff. And so good or bad, but I'm appreciative of the perspective I've always had. I've never, because it's, I've made all the decisions I had to make the right way because I'm where I need to be right now.
Yeah, and it's who you are.
Yeah.
It makes you who you are, right?
Yep.
And so when you look at yourself in the mirror, you gotta be happy with the person that's in front of you, no matter what happened.
Yep.
I'm glad you're good, bro.
Thank you, brother.
For real,
appreciate that. So yeah, I was just very appreciative of once I got out of that situation. And I never thought I was going to. I just thought, okay, cool, this is gonna be my life. And then when I got a surgery done, and that kind of moved everything around. And then, yeah, maybe a year after that, I didn't have to go to the hospital anymore. And then high school started soon after that. So I finally was able to kind of have a regular life. And then that's when I started writing. That's when I actually started writing before that. I started writing for the first time like in 6th grade. But it was all of that, man. Honestly, I mean, now come to think of it, it was me just trying to find a way to let some of this stuff off. I didn't know what it was at the time. But the moment it started off with like battle raps. But the moment I wrote one that was more personal was the moment I was like, oh, this is different. I was able to get something off that I haven't been able to tell anyone. And then that's when I was like, oh, paper and pen at the time became like my best friends because I was like, okay, I could talk, I could say things that I wasn't speaking on, to anyone else. So yeah, it's definitely the hip hop gave me as a young person, my identity.
So you started rhyming when you were a little kid, or like in 6th grade?
Like I was in 6th grade with my homies, like where we would write, after school. He would jot a verse, I would jot a verse, but we're at his crib, kind of spitting it to each other, trying to figure it out. Still, yeah. It wasn't like us. We knew what we were doing. Right?
Where did you go to school?
At that time, I was at Jonathan Burr School out in Wicker Park. Okay. And so me and my homie at the time, Ricardo, we always like rap. We used to write other, the rappers' lyrics just before you go online and get, Google the lyrics and stuff. So we were, stop, play, write the lyric, pause, play, pause, whatever, until you got the whole song done, right? And then I was like, oh, how do they do this? How do they structure the verse? Yeah. And then I was like, I'm gonna write my own verse, and that's how it started. And then it was like a phase at that time. We probably did it for like 6th grade, all of 6th grade maybe, and then after that it was kind of like whatever. And then when I got to high school, my freshman year, I met my homie Gustavo, and he was writing, just same thing, just writing bars on his notebook in between classes or in the middle of class. And I went to ask him, like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just writing raps. He's like, you want to write after what I finish? And I was like, all right, cool. I'm like, I actually used to write. And he's like, all right, cool. So then from there, that's it. Like he would just write a verse, and then he'll give me the notebook and I'll write like my verse after him, or he'll write 2 lines and I'll write the next 2. And then when me and him started doing that, other couple homies around us started rocking with it and started doing stuff too. And then I was probably like, I think a sophomore, we recorded our first song. Some guy invited us to a studio, it was one, I think me and like 4 of my guys. And it was the first song we ever recorded at a studio. And again, we're in high school. This guy's telling us he's going to sign us and all this other crazy stuff. But I stuck to it, man. I would go to open mics. Bateo Urbano in Humboldt Park was really big for me as a shorty. As a 13, 14-year-old, that's where I went every Friday to go spit my little verse that I wrote that week. It gave me confidence to be in front of a little stage, in front of a mic, in front of my peers. That was the first time I ever would do something like that. And there's another little coffee shop that my homie owned on Milwaukee by Western, and my homie Chantala's brother used to own it. And same thing, I would just go up there and do my little open mic, sign up and do my thing. But the reaction I would get from people very early on was like, it wasn't something that, again, man, you just try something because you like it and you enjoy it. But then getting that love from people, like, and them connecting with something. I remember the first, because again, I started off just battle raps, right? So it's like, everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. But then I wrote a song that was like, the first line or one of the lines was like, they say my name's Rafael, like something, right? I kind of said it like, but my name's Rafael, or Rafael, but my name's Rafael. Something simple, but it was this whole song about like not belonging, not being from here, not from there. It was like a first version of this other song that I eventually did called Chicano. But I would do that at the open mics, and it was the first time that people were like, they would come up to me. Like I could do all the battle raps in the world, but once I did that song, once I did that song, people will come up to me like, hey man, I relate to that. That's really dope. And I was just like, okay, this is different. Like the people are connected to the stories. Like it's one thing for someone who appreciates hip hop, they're gonna appreciate the rap, the lyrics, the punchlines, the metaphors, da. But a person who just enjoys music, sometimes that's going to go over their head because they're just in it for the feeling. They're in it to try to connect to something and whatever. And so that's when that gave me that realization of like, oh, I got a voice. I got things to say. I want to, that's how people connect to music.
On that strength, like, what did you see growing up that you wanted to change? Because you were writing about these things, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of those things that you wanted to change?
I think main thing for me is just like, exposure, man. Like I just realized that I just wished we had more exposure to things because like, let's say even at 17 starting college, it was the first time I grew up, again, west side of Chicago, northwest side of Chicago, mostly Latino, African-American. Like it just, so for the first time in the environment that I was walking into, there was people of all ethnicities, of all classes. You know, I was going to Northeastern at the time. So even though it was a local college and stuff like that, it still it was a different feel than I went to Prosser, you know, I went to Burr and you know, it's Chicago public schools. It's the same kids that you grew up in the neighborhood. We know how it is, right? And so,
yeah, I went to Northeastern too.
Yeah. So there you go. So then when I went to Northeastern, it was just an eye opener for me as far as like, oh, okay, everyone's trying to figure it out here. And there's, you know, I could stand in front of someone in financial aid line that had a check written by their parents paying off their full tuition for the year. And then I am there, you know, trying to figure out my loan situation or whatever. And then you just start realizing like, oh, this all kinds of, that's when honestly, for the first time in my life, you start realizing like, oh, there's different kinds of people that have different lifestyles. And you always think like, you know, screw the rich, you know, we're poor. But it just gave you a realization that's like, oh, this person kind of grew up like this and it's not their fault either. But, you know, it's just kind of like having sympathy and compassion towards one another and just kind of have a better understanding of the world. But it took me to go to college to kind of have that worldly experience. But the main thing I thought was just that exposure. Because then I was like, man, if the homies knew that this kind of world existed, even the conversations we were just having in classes, things that I was thinking about that I wasn't thinking like this in high school, just professors that would make you actually think and shit. And I was just kind of like, man, just exposure. I wish that was one of the things that even to this day that our shorties had more exposure to things because even I rock with a lot of the kids still from Little Village. They'll still reach out to me whenever. And not too long ago, the homie Eder, yeah, he's been out of the school for now 4 or 5 years now, but he still reaches out to me. And he asked me one day, he wanted to talk to me about some stuff he's working on. I brought him over to the house to just talk. And on our drive, just from his house on the south side to the north side, he's like, hey, is this still Chicago?
Wow.
Right. He's like, man, it's nice over here. Like, is this still, you know, it's like, mijo, this is, you know, and I'm like, not only that, but this is all you. Like, you deserve everything here, over there. Like, just that, man. Again, realizing that the lack of exposure and how much of a difference that makes when you're exposed to people of different lives, conversations that you haven't had, just people putting you onto things, food, environments, just anything where you're just like, man, this is different. There's more to the world. That little, whatever it is, but that little curiosity that those things bring is enough to want sometimes people to chase for more. And that's what I think was one of the bigger things that I always felt. And to this day, I think is a big piece for us to grow. I took shorties to college campuses and stuff like that you could just see their eyes like, oh man, there's a whole different world. And again, college isn't for everyone. And, you know, everyone has their own opinions on things, but those are examples that I have where you could tell kids were just taken from one environment to the other and you could see the shift in them. You could see like same thing with the Beats and Bars class. It's just like thought process, things that they weren't thinking about, things that they weren't understanding. It just exposure. That's it. I think that's been one of the biggest things that I've come to understand is it's just a huge need, man.
Yeah, I think that the reason why we need that is because Chicago is a very segregated city, especially on the south side.
Yep.
You know, like everybody lives in their little pocket and nobody gets out of their little pocket because we're always told that you shouldn't get out of your little pocket because you're safe in the pocket. Yeah. If you go to the other side, you go to across the street or you go on the other side of the viaduct, it's going to be...
It's territorial. Yeah. It's, for sure. And then I just think in general, just like you said, it's you know, a lot of kids feel it's not safe to leave that bubble, to leave, but that's been the biggest thing for me. I think once they get that opportunity, just your mind, opens up to the possibilities, to other things, different people with different experiences, lifestyles, things that you didn't even think possible. It was just, couldn't fathom. It was some TV stuff or something like, so yeah, man, I think it's a big thing to get that exposure early on. So I just owned up to what I was early on. Like, this is what I am. And it was the first time that I had something to identify myself with, because we're all looking for that as young people. We want to attach ourselves to something. That's why a lot of brothers end up in gangs and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to attach myself, but I didn't want to be in a gang. So I was like, what could I do? And it was the first time I went to a local hip hop show here. It was to see typical cats in Logan Square at some loft.
Yeah.
Second floor loft, dark as hell, makeshift little stage, but they killed it, right?
Yeah.
And
they're dope, man.
Man, this is dope, right? And even them, the group was like one African-American brother, one white dude, and an Asian dude, right? So I was just already was like, oh shit, this is different. And then the crowd too. It was like white folks, Asian folks, black folks, Mexican folks, or Latinos, whatever. I was just kind of like, oh shit, okay. But again, because and this was happening in Humboldt Park. So I was like, wait, this is my neighborhood. And y'all coming to this show over here? You know what I mean? So it was just kind of like, okay. And again, I was like 14 15 at the time. And so it was just brought the worlds together to me, where I was like, oh, this is, we're all here because of the music. Y'all like the music. I like the music. Yeah. So this is the one common factor between all of us. And I was just like, cool. My homie Caesar, though, visual at the time, who is Panic's brother, who connected me with Panic. And that's how I got in the moment back then. He taught me the hustle, though, because I was doing shows with him at the time. I was like his hype man, and he would let me do a couple songs, in between the set. But he would come off stage, and he had a mouthpiece on him. He could sell a CD, because he didn't care. He wasn't shy. He was like, yo, buy my shit. And I could see I was more timid at the time still, and I wasn't in front of people's faces doing it. And he walked out with money, and I did it. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna change this, because I want to walk out with some money too. So then I started doing the same things, just like, talking to people. And that's when I realized sometimes the people want to rock with you, but they're shy themselves, or they think you're going to be whatever, right? And so sometimes they want to approach you, whatever the case may be. And I just had the benefit of people rocking with me. Honestly, I've been blessed to be co-signed by some of the most respected artists from here in the city. At the time when I was younger, I was doing Chicago Rocks, and I performed at Metro when I was 18. You know what I mean? Like, I did stuff that at the time I was like, why am I even here? Like, then I was just paying dues at that time, going pass out flyers, going to the radio station, meeting random people. And, and so I was just out here, bro. I was just out here. I got exposed to shit, and I didn't care if anyone didn't understand what I was doing. My fam didn't get it. Mexican parents, my sisters.
Yeah, what was that like?
Bro, complete opposite. It took for me to come out like on MTV and come out on the newspaper and things like that for them to be like, oh, that's what you've been doing in the basement this whole time? You know what I mean? Nice. Because before that, it was just kind of like, oh, okay. Or like when I would come out like with a CD, pues a ver si este sí. Like they were expecting some like, and I was just like, I don't get what I'm trying to build here. And it was okay. But one, it was like, you don't get the music. You don't connect with it in any way, right? They're Mexican. I'm talking, my mom and my dad listen to only Spanish music. I'm not speaking a word of Spanish in my shit. And it's rap. So it's fast and it's content that they don't want to hear, right? So there's no connection there. My sisters the same way. They all listen to Spanish music. So they weren't, but it never deterred me. But my homie PNS, from the moment when they told me, he's like, look, man, don't stress about like your fam not. He's like, just worry about the day your mom needs to pick like which house she wants or like what color car she wants and stuff. Like they're not going to get it. Just work for what you want to, what you're working towards, and it'll happen. And don't worry about if they get it or not. He's like, because one, it's going to mess up where you create from. And then you're trying to create to try to impress people that at the end of the day, doesn't matter, because the people you got to impress are going to be your fans and the people who are actually going to be at your shows. And, and so I was just like, right, I got to just do what I got to do. And, and so, yeah, it took some time. It took years, a lot of years for them to understand it. But it felt good when they finally showed up to a show. You know what I mean? It felt good when I finally got some support.
What was that like?
It was dope, man. It was surreal.
Where was it?
My sister Anna came to one at Zócalo Urbano, which was the Bate Urbano spinoff in Pilsen. And so it was a little community space, and she went there for the first one of my shows. So that was the first time a family member went, and it was just, again,
How did she engage you after the show?
She just like, I could not believe that was you on stage, because again, off of stage, I'm chill, I'm and on stage, I'm a completely different person. So she was like, "What? I've never seen that side of you." And she's like, "That's really dope, whatever." So, and we had a successful release party at the dark room, and my mom and my sister showed up.
Did you know that they were coming?
No.
So you were just
No, I was just performing, and I saw my mom.
You saw them in the crowd?
Yeah,
that must have been powerful.
Yes, it was, man. It was very powerful. But yeah, I cared less about it as I grew older, like as far as them getting it. But not that I cared less, but I was like, they're gonna get it when they're gonna get it. Like it wasn't as important as when I was younger for them to understand why I was putting all this time in. Because at some point when I was younger, they were like, "Why are you spending all this time writing? Like, go outside and do something." And I was like, "You understand what I'm like? I'm trying to like build something here, right?" And I was trying to, but they don't. It's like they didn't get it. It was very hard for them to understand it. And so then part of that was also, as I grew older and I kept making music, why I made the transition to also make Spanish music or music in Spanish was because I realized that there's some stories that I wanted, not necessarily my parents, but
a wider audience.
Yeah, just a wider audience. And the stories that I was saying, if I said them, if I wrote them in English, the people who the story is intended for they're not going to get to understand it. So it's like, that's what I was like, I got to make the shift. There's certain stories that I got to say, but they got to be said in Spanish, and in order for me to get the person that it's intended for. And so, but in that's when the first time I did songs like that was the first time my parents also were like, "Oh, okay," because they could get a little bit of what I was saying, and it wasn't just BS, and it wasn't like, and so they started. I was also in a much better place in my writing. And, by this time I was really confident with my flow in Spanish. I was, doing great at writing songs. So I was just talking about more impactful things as well. And so I think it just finally made sense to them. Coming out in Tribune, coming out in Oi, the couple TV appearances, things like that, it just reassured them in a way that I wasn't crazy all these years, that I was actually trying to do something. At the end of the day, most parents don't care how you go about doing that, honestly, as long as you do it, right? They just want to see their kids well off and do right. But I was just very headstrong about just doing it my way, you know. But along that, like you mentioned earlier in the intro, I did get my degree, and I did that for my parents, right? So I went to school. I'm grateful for it because it has given me opportunities. I wouldn't have worked at the school where I met you if I hadn't gotten my degree. And so, but I know for a fact at times when I felt like quitting, the reason I didn't was because of my parents. Because like, man, this is why they came here. They want to see their kids. And at this point in time, only one of my other sisters had graduated from Loyola. So I was like the last one that was going through college. So
you have 3 older sisters?
I have 3 older sisters.
And then you're the baby boy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My wife gives me shit about that all the time. But she's the only girl. She's hey, bro, she's the only girl on her side. Yeah. But she's not the youngest, but she's the only girl, so I still give her shit. But yeah, so yeah, man, at the time I just wanted to see that through for them too, right?
Yeah, for me it was a different experience, but I think it was because I was in the South Side. Yeah. The South Side is different. We're very tribal. Yeah. And so there were a whole bunch of cousins and family members that were like, "Bro, why are you trying to be black? Like why are you trying to be black, bro? Why are you hanging out with black people, bro?" Like, and so I was able to be part of a crew. And then I was going to Inglewood on the South Side. And so a lot of people didn't understand that. The one thing that I was doing though, is I was b-boying, I was writing graffiti and rhyming and producing. And so it was just like, everybody was like, it's a phase. It's a phase. He'll get over it. He'll get over it. And so one thing that was really important to my crew was learning your history and learning your culture. And so, a lot of those cousins that approached me on negativity, right, with the negative vibe about like, "Yo, bro, why you trying to be black?" I would always be like, "Bro, I know way more about our culture than you do." You know what I'm saying? Like, I know about the Mexica, I know about the Noxticlan, I know about the Purepecha, you know what I'm saying? Like the Maya. And so I was like able to break stuff down, and they were like, damn, why you know all this? And I was just like, it's important for us to know where we come from. The beautiful thing that hip hop did, which is something that happened to you, was that it allowed you to be around a whole bunch of people that weren't like you. And it gave you a space. So it was like you were dope, and you were dope because you were dope. It didn't matter what color you were. It didn't matter what background you were, how much money you had.
You know what was funny though, bro? As funny as it was though, because I think just the stigma of like specifically Mexicans in rap, right?
Yeah.
I could come off stage and 99% of the time, no one would guess I was Mexican. They would say I was Puerto Rican. They say I was Dominican and black. They say I was Mexican and black or something. Like I would have to be mixed somehow.
Yeah.
Or I just had to. So when I would say I'm Mexican, they're like, okay, Mexican and what? I was like, Mexican. Like, what? You dope, man. I was like, so it was just funny though, because that's one of the things, like it was hard for them to grasp that I was like Mexican and rapping the way I was. But I think it was just, again, a lot, there's a stigma with like the cholo rap stuff and certain things where like they just thought like, oh, Mexican rappers sound like this, you know, or Mexican rappers sound like that. And they kind of try to box you in. And then when it was just like, I just rap, like I know these are the rappers I look up to. For me, it was just like I went full force on like, well, first I got the nopal in my forehead, right? So it's like I can't fake like I'm nothing else. I'm either Indian or I'm Mexican. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to go to the Desi parties. And I'd be quiet, and as soon as somebody would talk to me, they would be like, bro, you're not Indian. They'd be like, I'm not messing with you. And I'd be like, yo, bro. No. But anyway, so yeah, but it was just like, so I was just like, I'm going to go Azteca. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just like, I ran to it. Like hip hop was always really, really powerful to like, you know, I was going to the Subterranean in the open mics and just like when the Pacifics were running it or Rex from the Pacifics was running it. It was an incredible time. You know what I'm saying? Like Nacrobats, like MUL, Air Crew, DC5, like all of these really dynamic, like Phase 2, Brickheads, like all these really dope people were doing really incredible things. And yeah, man, it was dope. Let's talk about like how you met the Moment. Like we were talking about that earlier. Yeah. Like what did that do to you? Yeah, man. I was 17 when I met Panic, and that was through his brother Caesar Visual. He met me at that coffee shop I said I was doing on Milwaukee and Western. I did an open mic. Yeah. And he came up to me. He's like, yo, you're dope. I'm going to tell my brother about you. And I didn't know who his brother was. I was like, all right, cool, man. Nice. All right. And then, así quedó. The next day he called me. He's like, bro, do you want to work on some songs or something? I was like, yeah. So I think we ended up working on some songs. And I was just like, all right, this dude's cool.
Yeah, you told me that he threw you like three.
No, but this was his brother.
That.
This was his brother. This was Caesar. Okay, so I'm working at with him first. I didn't even know his brother was Panic. Okay. And so we're just working on music. He's like, cool. And then we worked on a song. He's like, man, I'm gonna show my brother this shit. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, who's your brother? He's like, Panic from the Moment. I was like, oh shit, for real? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so I had a DJ. My homie Bim at the time was my DJ. And Bim, I was like, yo, I didn't know Caesar was Panic's brother. He's like, yeah, man, whatever. I was like, all right, cool. He's like, man, you should go try to get a beat from Panic. And I was like, all right, I see what's up. So then Caesar,
those were precious, dude. Yeah, like, right. People were paying top dollar for those.
Yes. So then I was like, all right, cool, man. So then that's exactly what I thought. I was like, I'm gonna go and he's gonna sell me a beat, right? That's what I thought the conversation was be like. But then Caesar hits me up. He's like, hey, my brother said to meet him at Gramophone, And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. So I went to Gramophone. Panic was working there at the time. And he was in the back room. And he's like, cool, rap. I just fucking went. And he's like, dope. He's like, all right, cool. He's like, here's his beat CD. He's like, go write some songs and come back.
Dang, he just had it in his pocket?
I mean, they had their whole wall of CDs there at Gramophone. He literally walked to the wall, picked one of them, and gave them to me. Nice. And then I was just like, all right, cool, bro, thanks. So then I went home, wrote 3 songs that night, hit him back the next day. I was like, yo, I got some songs on. He's like, you got songs on the day? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. Him by the crib, played it for him, and that's it. He's like, all right, cool. We want you to be done with the Moment. I was like, all right, sounds good. Shuck on it, walked out. I called my homie Bim, and I was like, he's like, cool, man, you got the beat. I got a little more than the beat, I think. Yeah. He's like, what happened? I think I'm part of the Moment.
Yeah, I think I got jumped in.
Yeah. I think I just got initiated. And then he's like, what? Whatever. You tweaking now again, bro. 17 at the time. So I was just like, oh shit. Again, probably 2-3 years prior to that, I had just been like, my homie Mike had just put me onto them, give me some beat tapes. I got exposed to Vakil and Juice and all that through them and the City Limits albums at the time. And I was just like, oh shit, these are dope, right? And again, man.
What year was this? Like when you were 17?
It was actually in 2001 when I think I got with them.
Okay.
That year that I graduated from high school.
Okay.
That summer. Because I started at Northeastern. I met Bim at Northeastern.
Man.
He was in the hip hop organization. I joined that. And then soon after he became my DJ. And it was right after I met like the Moment and all that. But the main thing that taught me, man, again, it was just like, yo, if you want to do something, it's possible. Like the difference between you getting something done and not is you doing something about it and not. Probably had a handful of songs written, and stuff like that, where I didn't even know that this could be a career option. And so just having someone else like co-sign me, and even at the time like them, right? Like I was just kind of like, okay, I got something in me. Someone else sees it in me too. Like I got something. And so, yeah, man, just reassured me of my path. And at the time, I had just graduated. I had gone for the Golden Apple Scholarship when I was in high school, right? Which is like the teaching scholarship, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get it when I was in high school. That time I did it because I actually wanted it. They told me about it. My sister Anna was on my ass about like, yo, you can get a free ride. She knew what it was to pay for college. She went to Loyola and she had to pay. So she's like, yo, go for it. Try it, whatever. Try it. I didn't get it. So I was like, cool. I was bummed out about it, but kept it moving. So then when I was my freshman year in college, they gave us opportunity to do it again. And I went for it. But this time I was just like, it was more so to prove myself that I could do it. Yeah. And I just kind of went through the motions and I got it, right? And so they accepted it and I got the scholarship.
Congratulations, bro. That's dope.
But I didn't accept it.
Oh.
So, exactly. So
okay, why?
This is where those decisions that you make.
Yeah. So this goes exactly to what I was looking at it right now, bro. So like what are those fork in the road moments that you've had?
So that was a big one. So I got the scholarship. I got the acceptance letter and I went to go interview and did all that and I got it and I was just like, now that I proved myself that I could get it, I was just like, shit, now what am I going to do? And so to my family, they thought it was like a no-brainer. Like it was just like, well, there was no question that I was going to do it. So when I even brought up the idea of not doing it,
man,
it was pretty bad, bro.
Yeah, what happened?
My sister Anna stopped talking to me for some time.
Okay.
She thought I was very ungrateful for the opportunity. She rightfully so, right? As a responsible older person at the time, she was already in her mid-20s, had gone through college, understood the heartache and the hardships, I could say, of going through that and paying it on your own and getting loans and all this other shit. So seeing her brother have an opportunity to not have to go through that.
The golden apple opportunity.
and not take it.
Yeah.
To her, it was like a slap in the face, right? Maybe to like our family, my parents,
El esfuerzo, the sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly, right? But I remember just driving around. I don't even remember who was driving. I just remember being in the back seat and just trying to figure this out in my head. Like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to tell my parents I'm contemplating about doing this? Like, I was going through it. And the only reason I thought the reason I was not going to take it and the reason I didn't take it was because I couldn't fathom signing off my life at that time, like the way it was set up to like 4 years all the way through in college. You had to do the summer program, so no summers off. And then the moment you finish those 4 years, you have to sign up to be a CPS teacher for the next 5. So in my head, you're already dictating the next 9 years of my life. Like, this is where it's going to go. Like, I have 4 years I'm dedicated to this, 5 years I'm here.
And it would become a priority.
Yeah, that's it. There's nothing else because I'm fully accepting this and I'm not going to half-ass it. And everything I do, I go in. So it was just kind of like, all right, I'm going to do this. And I couldn't live with that because, again, it goes back to everything I've been through as a kid. I'm like, how are you going to tell me that now you're telling me what I'm going to do for the next 10 years of my life? You're here. The moment I signed this, I know that for the next 10 years, this is where I'm headed. And I couldn't. There was a part of me that it didn't feel right. So I did, spoke to I don't know who I spoke to first at this point, but the conversation with my dad was the one that made me at peace with my decision. He told me that we come in this world without nothing and we're going to leave without nothing. So to do what I had to do, to take care of what I had to do, that he respected whatever decision I made, but
Yeah, that had to have been like super liberating. Like it like
bro,
it took that.
That's it. The moment he said that to me, my decision was made.
Yeah.
The moment he said that to me, I didn't care. Yeah, my sister was upset, my mom was upset, but the moment my dad said that to me, for that very little instant, I just felt like someone understood me.
Nice.
And that my dad was at least not just stubborn for the sake of being stubborn and not trying to at least hear me out.
Yeah, he was listening.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, and it was just that. Like I was like, I don't want to put the next 9 years of my life like this is it. Like I couldn't. It's like I'm a little bit too much of a free spirit in that sense where I can't do that. But it's always also know that it's always a duality. Like just because I know you asked me like right now, yeah, this is what I do full time. But there's instances where this isn't what I do full time. You know, I have a family, I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have priorities, I have goals. And being an entrepreneur and being a businessman, I learned to hustle as a young man, but as a single young man, right? So you could have good weeks, you could have bad weeks. You get paid for a couple extra verses this week, you get a couple shows next week. Might be extra health wallet, might be extra healthy one week, might not be in a couple weeks from now, but you figure it out because it's yourself and you could do with peanut butter sandwiches or whatever sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Or frijolitos and tortillas, whatever you got to do, right, to get by. But once you're responsible for other people and, you know, just in general, it's just, so yes, with that being said, that's how I ended up working at the high school. I've had to make decisions like that in my life too, where it's like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I have to also take care of my family. So to people, I always, you know, for us who take the jump, don't ever think it's also an easy decision, and that that the jump is never just, we jumped in and that was it. We just been swimming the whole time. No, there's times where we get back out, and then there's times where we jump back in. You know what I mean? So yeah, with that being said, don't feel bad for the decisions you make either, because there's the same thing with the brothers, the homies that I've had. I wrote it in a song, but I don't even, I can't remember the line, but it was just that, like, there's instances in my friend's life that they're reaching certain plateaus that I wish I was reaching, but I was focused on what I was focused. You know, maybe they had their kids earlier than I did, they had their house earlier than I did, they had certain things. I was just like, man, I'm not doing these things. I'm not getting the things done that I need to get done.
There's also a part of me that that part that we were talking about, that I admire people who dove in, right? It's something that I've talked about in the other episodes of the podcast, but it's also something that just stays with me. Like I really admire people who dedicate themselves to their passion and like figure out a way, right? I think that you being honest about jumping in and jumping out, right? Like not always swimming. That's like, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, like the listeners will hopefully, you know, see and feel the truth that I feel, right? Like,
cause trust me, bro, I've jumped in where I nearly lost everything. Like I've jumped in where the people around me didn't get it anymore. Where it's like, what are you doing? Why are you still, like, you know, I've done it to that point where you need the life experiences in those times as well to come back to what you're working on. And sometimes you need that to sustain your business, because if you're trying to build something, you need income, you need funds, you need finances, you need whatever. So it's like, if you got to do odd jobs, if you got to do, the hustle's the hustle. But my thing has always been like, it comes back to what I'm building here. Like everything I've ever done came back to here. Like whatever lo cosechaba, whatever it was, it came back to this somehow. The end goal was always this. It was never like, oh, I'm signed up for here, I'm going to be here for the next 30, or I just did this, I'm going to be here for the next. No, I was like, what am I going to do? How is this situation?
How is it going to contribute to
how is it going to contribute to? It's always the end goal. It's never not the end goal. So because of that, I've moved like that. And yes, family, friends, they don't understand that. It's not the normal way of doing things. It's not, whatever, but I'm okay with that, man. Again, my life wasn't normal in the beginning. I've been okay with me choosing to live the lifestyle. I've been obviously very appreciative of just having the support system. Even when my parents didn't get the music and my family didn't, I still had a house. I still had a home. I still had a basement that they provided for me, so I could create. So it's like, yes, they weren't like all over me. Oh my God, my son's so great at doing music, whatever. But they didn't stop me.
Yeah,
either.
they supported you.
They let me do my thing. So in those ways, I was like, hey, my mom, my dad didn't have to make sure I had internet or didn't have to make sure I had a computer. Didn't, certain things where I would, or, I went out of my way to get turntables and things like that once, I had my jobs and stuff. But I think it just showed them that I was actually interested in this. And like you said, it wasn't a phase. I think that was a big thing for them too. It's just, he's going to get over this. And then it's just like, now I'm a grown man. And now they see me managing artists and doing other things. And they realize like, oh, this is just him.
Yeah.
This isn't a phase. This is what he does.
If you could speak to yourself as a child, what would you say to him?
Just having an open mind, being receptive to your blessings. I think that a lot of times just not honing in and understanding like the power we have. I wish I understood that earlier on. And I think the main thing, keep doing you. Like in my head, little younger me, just keep believing, just keep doing you, because I've had plenty of reasons not to. I've had plenty of reasons where most people would be like, all right, I'm done with this. It ain't this, it ain't that. And it's not even like holding on to something for the sake of holding on to something. Because I made a conscious decision a couple years ago to not continue dropping music on a consistent basis like I was and transition over to other things. So do your thing and understand that along the way there's evolution and that it's okay. And yeah, the biggest thing is just for me, I think, be receptive of your blessings. Put yourself in the rooms that you need to be in to win. It's not going to happen at the crib. It's not going to happen in your room. Sometimes you got to step out. You got to meet other people. You got to, especially in this business, it's a lot of networking. It's a lot of who you know. So yeah, man, I think it's understanding that it takes just hard work, perseverance. But yeah, I think main thing I think I would tell myself as a young person was just keep believing in yourself. My skill set that I got through schooling and my degree and stuff like that, and my experience to that, and then my musical experience and what I learned through life and all that, for the first time ever in my life, that they align. Yeah. Never in my life had they aligned. Everything was always separate. My work life at the time, I worked in therapy with kids with autism. I've done all kinds of different things. No one ever knew I was a rapper. No one ever knew I did in music. My lives were two separate things. Man. I never. I remember I was working one time, jumping in and out, brother. This is one of them. I remember working at Little Village on the high school, same thing. I got hired for, not for the music stuff at all. And I'll be working with the shorties. And I remember just them talking, like, man, I wish there was more like dope Mexican rappers. And in my head, I'm like, man, spit these bars right quick. Yeah. But I never did, right? I just kept it quiet. And then until one time, one of the shorties, they found my music online. I guess he said he was searching for like Chicago hip hop. Nice. And he came across my shit. And so I was in the hallway, they're in the hallway, and one of the kids spit one of my lines. And I was like,
that's pretty cool, dude.
It was cool, but they were trying to fuck with me. So then he said it, and as soon as I turned around, he looked at me. And I was like, oh, so I kept it moving. I went into the classroom. The moment I went into the classroom, one of the other shorties was like, hey, Mr. Navarro, I got to talk to you. And I was like, oh, shit, I already know what's up. So the jig is up. So then I came over to him like, what's up, bro? And he's like, you rap? I was like, bro, focus on your school stuff. Let's go, right? So I kept it moving. And they're like, nah, bro. And then some other kid called me over. He's like, yo, you rap or you got a twin? I was like, nah, I rap, but we'll talk later. And so then after that, the whole week, the story was that I rapped. And everyone was like playing my music in the lunchroom and shit. And it was just funny, right? But then I remember telling the shorty who found the music, he came up to me. He's like, hey, man, you should, he's like, oh, you should, I don't know what, like, look out for him, whatever. He's like, because I put you on at the school or whatever. He's like, I'm not going to lie, Mr. Navarro, if you were whack, I probably wouldn't have said nothing because I wouldn't want to embarrass you. He's like, but you're kind of dope, so it's okay. Nice. So I was like, cool, bro, thanks a lot. But from there, I met Tat at the time.
And for those that don't know, Tat was the resource coordinator for Little Village Lawndale High School. He was in charge of some programs during the day and some programs after school. So he was pretty much building the community school. He would build the enrichment programs. He was funding programs like the poetry group, like Beats and Bars, like the anime club. And so he had all of these young people figured out what they wanted to do and then would make a club for them.
At the high school, he got me the funding for the program. And
hey man, rest in peace, Tad, dude. That dude
earlier
was incredible.
I said how that period in my life changed. Tad was one of the main reasons why that period in my life meant what it meant to me.
All right, tell me about Tad.
Tad, I'll
tell you my story.
His impact, bro. His impact. That was the lesson he taught me. I learned a huge lesson from him. And where it's like, fam, don't matter what you think life has set up for you. Like, so one of those. That was one. But the main thing that I walked away was, one, his selflessness about just wanting to help, wanting to just good when a person's good, right? But the impact, the legacy that he did, even in the short time that he was with us, the impact he had for so many. Again, the same small realization I had in the Beats and Bars classroom was, I was one me, but there's 20 of them. It's like, fam, Tat had hundreds of them and thousands of them, and he impacted that many people. That's when I heard Shorty's at his funeral, and then just in general, the rapport he built with them. Some people could be here 100 years and don't do that, bro.
He had people dressing up in costumes, bro.
Yes, bro.
Like Care Bear costumes,
yes,
and just being cool with it.
Yep.
Like he made being a nerd and just being a geek like the coolest thing in the world.
Because he just was himself, brother. And again, bro, like just people like that, you don't come across them often. He was so down for me too, for my program, for just, he knew what I was capable of. He came to me the moment he's, hey man, I heard, you do music. And he's like, I actually had heard about you in the past, but I didn't even know you worked here. He's like, yeah, let's do this program. He was on it, man. He went out of his way to get me equipment, to do whatever he could do to help.
Yep. Yeah. So
again,
that brother,
selfless, man.
That brother honestly would be like, you would be like, yo, I want to build a spaceship. And he would be like, all right, let's meet at 4:00, come through the office, and then sit down with him. And he'd be like, with a notebook, a pen, and be like, all right, how we going to do this? And you just be like, wow. Like he was an incredible person, man.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. So
always any idea that you had, he was like maximizing it and like being like, I would imagine like a parent, right? Like a parent that's like super supportive that would just be like, yo, let's do it. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
You want to do flips? All right, let's figure out how you're going to do flips right now.
Exactly, bro. And to me, that's the same energy he gave to all the shorties. So it just always felt like he was just receptive to them. He was open to their ideas. He was open to helping them out. Again, man, people clock in and out just like everyone does. You know what I mean? But there's a difference in certain people that clock in and out, and where they actually leave an imprint in their jobs and in the community that they work for. He was one of those people, man. He left an imprint. He left such a big imprint that like even the people that followed him, that got those positions after him, like Zuli, then Marissa, then Jeeves, like all of those people are incredible badass people, man. I agree, man. I agree. And those are the type of people you need in those type of positions, because they're the ones building with their youth.
Quinty.
Yep, Quinty. I worked at Enlace for some years in the street outreach program as well, working with the kids, the youth out in the community, being a mentor. It's needed, man. So when you find those type of people that the youth actually connect with and that actually have a rapport with, there's no amount of money that you can pay those people, because those type of things are priceless, man. This is why we need to treat our not just the teachers, just the staff in these schools, man. A lot of these people in these buildings are the support systems for these kids sometimes, and I don't think they get the proper credit. But overall, just people who have that type of character, man, they're very valuable and indispensable in that way, because they're needed, man. They're needed in our community. And so, Ted he left a great legacy, and I think all the people that you mentioned after him amazing people in their own right. And I also think his legacy was partly why they had to live up to continue striving to offer that type of support and service to the kids, because they knew how Tat did it, and he left a standard to uphold. And so I think for that reason, they, outside of them having it in them, because you can't fake that shit either, right? So outside of them being amazing people and having that in them, I think it also they felt that they had to do his work justice. So yeah, man, that's a brother that every so often I think of, and a life lesson overall, just something to to be mindful of, be appreciative. But that was it, my legacy. He taught me that. He literally taught me that. Like, what do I leave behind? This is it. Like, I leave with nothing. Like, yeah, I've always thought like that, but the big piece was the legacy. Like, what impact did I have? What did I leave behind? And honestly, that's where, like, even because then all the music stuff, like, okay, cool, I leave music behind, and yes, I get that, but it's like, what else? Who else did I impact? Like, honestly, that's why when I started Beats and Bars and everything, I was like, man, this feels so fulfilling. Mm-hmm. I'm happy. I don't ever have to rap and do an album myself ever again. This is beautiful here. Yeah. If I taught myself how to rap and I gained the respect that I did just so now these brothers could respect me enough to sit here with me and build with me, I'm good. Literally. And that's why, because I went from doing music full time, I had my daughter at 30, and then I was like, okay, I'm not going to half-ass music, and I'm not going to half-ass being a father. So I'm just going to be a father. I can't really, I don't know how to half-ass shit. With my music things, just
you're gonna end up unhappy too, because you're
not doing anything.
Be pulled on both.
Exactly, and I'm like,
be resentful on both ends.
Exactly. So then I was just like, I was trying so hard to juggle it. I was trying at that time. I was like, no, I didn't know any other lifestyle. I had just been going this whole time on my own. In that sense, yes, I had with my girl, I had been, my wife now, I had been with her at the time for 8 years or 9 years already. So I already knew that was solidified in a way, right? We had built a solid relationship, but I had the support from her where I was doing my thing, right? But now us having our daughter, I mean, just the sake of just being a responsible person, I was like, all right, cool, I got to figure this out. And so, yeah, I started working at some other place, and then I got the job at CPS. But it was that process, because so once I made that decision where I was like, I'm not going to make music anymore, I just stopped writing. I stopped doing everything. I just literally stopped. That shit was kind of hard because I went from being a full-time artist, this is all I knew. And I was honestly closest to my peak that I had ever been. Like, again, when I started, I thought, I'm always going to be like just an underground rapper because I make underground music, and so I'm just going to be like this underground independent rapper. And then when I started doing different shit and going a little bit, just doing a bunch of random features and just trying shit where I wasn't afraid of, I could do anything. I felt I could get on any beat, I could kill any beat, I could do it my way. I didn't care. I was
even like write a song,
fucking
like a Mariah Carey song.
I was confident as confident could be. I would tell my manager at the time, like, yo, put me on a song with any fucking rapper, I will claim my spot on that song. I was just confident, bro. So I went from that to then just stopping, right? And not only that, but this was the first time I had labels reaching out to me, because I started also at the time, it was 2012, 2013. I started doing Spanish stuff. I did one of the first like Spanish trap songs. No one was really doing rapping over trap beats in Spanish at the time. It was this other guy, Los Racas out in Cali, that I thought were the first ones, but they actually said we're probably tied for it. So I was, all right, cool, right? So this was back then. This was 10 plus years ago.
Those Racas are dope.
Yeah, Racas are fire, right? And those are the homies. And they came to Chicago at that time. They kicked it with us. I met them in South by Southwest. So yeah, it was just dope, right? So then, but that was the first time I was getting reached out from labels. Like Sony reached out to us. I was working with Muggs from Soul Assassins. I was trying to make some shit happen over there. They had hosted my mixtape. Like, first album I ever bought was Cypress Hill at 8 years old. So to have Muggs like co-signing me and shit, I was just like, again, bro, this is, as a kid, you couldn't have told me I was going to do it. Even if no one ever told me, I'm like, fam, the 6 degrees of separation, a lot of times, even when I'm watching TV and shit, I'm just like, I tell my wife like, that. Oh yeah, right? Just simple shit where I'm like, I've been in enough rooms. I've been in this long enough where I know who I need to know, or at least, right? But the biggest thing for me was just once I made that transition over, I was like, cool, I'm gonna stop. The beautiful thing was with Beats and Bars, what that is, again, it tied both of my lives together for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And at that time period, it saved me because it brought me back to being a creative. From completely stopping, now I had a reason to be creative.
Yeah, you had to had to show them how to do it.
I had to show them how to do it.
And you couldn't be whack.
Yeah, I couldn't be whack. And I was actually, all the years that I had been trying to gain respect as an artist.
Yeah.
Now, like, my family, a lot of people they were respecting what I was doing because I was now teaching kids how to do it and whatever. So it was a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
Where it's
not just self-serving. It's like you're doing something for other people.
For other people. And not only that, but I understood the power in that. And as much as I consider myself to be a good-hearted person. I wish good on people. I'm not out here trying to do malicious shit to anyone or nothing. I just how I live my life. You think that sometimes that's enough to just be like good to your, not to cause harm to anyone, but it's like, what are you doing to give back? What are you doing to, and I hadn't been doing anything. My life was very, again, self-serving, bro. And you don't think of it as you're going, but it is. It's just because you're trying to reach your goals, to do your things, to help your family, to do,
But I think that it's because when you, like, when you're young, you're so involved in being young in this experience that you like dive into that. Yeah. And then you just keep on following that road, and that road is just like you were saying, like the artist is just like.
To me, literally my career was like every win that I didn't think or that came to me because I wasn't necessarily expecting it. It just pushed me to go for the next win. Like it was just like, oh shit, I got written up over here. Great. I got an interview over here. Oh shit. It just kept stacking up. So it was an addiction, man. It was, honestly. I was addicted to making sure that and I couldn't stop. Because again, I had been the closest at this time period that I never thought labels were going to reach out to me. Just because again, that wasn't the space I was in. So then when these things started falling into place, I was like, okay.
You start seeing light.
Yes. But then going from that to a lot of things falling down in my personal life at the time, where I was like, well, what's it worth if all I'm fighting for is this, but my personal life is going through shit? Everything I've been working for, it's not going to matter if everything else is falling apart. So then, again, just conscious decisions. I had my daughter, but once I was able to bring those two worlds together, it's been the best experience I've had. I mentally go back to it a lot. I was still working on the program. We were actually expanding it to other high schools and stuff like that right before COVID, and then COVID hit, and then we didn't continue pursuing it. But I actually was talking to someone today about bringing the program back. My intentions don't stop with that. I just want to make it bigger, and I want to make it more accessible. And so that is definitely still something I want to continue building. I think one of my goals is I always wanted to have a community center like type of space. Yeah. But the reason I felt Beats and Bars worked, and this is why I did like the mobile studio setup and stuff like that, because I remember being at the high school and having shorties who wanted to go to the boxing gym, but didn't want to walk over to the boxing gym. Or they couldn't, right? It wasn't their side of the neighborhood. So then that's when you start thinking, okay, if I'm going to build a community center, I want to build it where it's needed. But then you're going to have that situation where there's going to be certain shorties that can't walk over there. So then when I started doing Beats and Bars at the Enlace office, and then I could get those kids in that neighborhood to come through, and then I was doing it at the high school, and then I get that's powerful because I'm bringing it to them. I'm not, and then I started taking these kids from Beats and Bars to Loyola to do a little radio interview. I took them to to do a video. I gave them the like for them to feel what it is to be an artist, the exposure, the experience to be like, oh shit, I'm shooting a video now. Shit, I'm doing an interview. Like I could do this. Like bro. To me, that must
have been super empowering for them because they were just like, yo, they'd call their homie like, yo, I'm doing a video, son.
From never writing a 16 to like by the end of that program, they have a whole album. A lot of the anger that we had sometimes outward towards other things we've now unfortunately have brought it into ourselves, and that's causing a lot of chaos, right, amongst just the younger generation and why we're losing so many young rappers. But I think that, again, spaces like Beats and Bars made me realize like a lot of these brothers, all they need is that.
How do you? So now you're managing these artists, right? How do you like? Do you talk to them about? I'm positive that they're tempted to like do the trap like style of representing your hood or representing yourself or representing your crew, right? What do you tell them? Do you tell them anything? Do you just let them? How do you engage them?
For sure. So as of right now, most of the artists I've worked with don't have that type of content.
Okay.
It has been somewhat of a conscious decision for me.
Yeah.
One, because me, myself, that wasn't my content. Like I could talk shit with the best of them, but it was always, I also had different kinds of songs and I was never talking too crazy.
Yeah. And this is part of loop theory, right?
Yeah. So then as me as an artist, having that ear, I know and hearing other artists that are capable of that, right? Where you could hear, you could gun talk, you could street talk, you could whatever. It's just what are you saying about it? How are you saying it? Is it even halfway intelligent? Are you actually trying to tap into something? Are you like whatever, right? So personal preferences and where I want the type of music I think that we need in general, that's what I'm gonna go for. So for the most part, I'm not gonna shy away from the realities of the shit we live in, and so I don't ever want to tell someone how they should and shouldn't do their art.
Yeah, limit them.
I don't want to do that. Sometimes you just need to shed light on people and let them realize it themselves.
Yeah. And
so it's just teaching them about that too. A lot of the initial conversations when I had with Beats and Bars, when, the ops and this and that, I was, all right, brothers, we talking all these guns. How did the guns get here? Let's just start with that. Then everyone's looking at each other like, what do you mean? We got gun stores here? Or how do all your homies, why are the homies packing? Every one of your homies packing. Why? Why does everyone have a gun? Where do they come from? Let's just start with that. And now let's take another step further. Who's the real ops? Right? And then you start having those conversations with them and they're like, oh shit, okay. Cool. Did you choose the neighborhood that you wanted to grow up in, or was that chosen for you? Oh, okay. Did your mom, or okay. And you just things that they're like, oh, pre-wired to believe or pre-wired to think or whatever. And then they're like, oh. And so those first sessions were just that, man. Yeah. Right? I think they gained the respect from me in that sense, where I was relating their everyday life shit, but just making them think about it a little different. So yeah, man, as far as the content goes, all the artists I work with, for the most part in Loop Theory, I have R&B artists, I have hip hop artists, had to have that conversation. In the instance with the other brother that I mentioned.
That's who you're investing in, but you're also investing in the other brother,
and I want to, and I'm going to continue. I just don't want to
he needs to see it.
I don't want to be the bearer of that message of, I don't want to bring that energy into the world.
Shut that person down.
Not only that, but just in like me to fully back up. Like, again, you could do both. You could talk about it. I just don't feel like there never needs to be truly glorified. It just, just talk about the reality of it. Like the hardships, the good shit, the bad shit. And I think you could still, there's nothing more hip hop to me than a real dude or man or woman, whoever it is, whatever story it is that that's who they are, that's what they rap about. That's what they live. Like, what better way than to, and that's why I was like, sometimes I tell the young brothers like, man, you understand, like you putting this kind of energy out there, like you're going to have to be looking over your shoulder. You're going to have to you're testing people. You're
showing everybody that you have a diamond chain around you.
Yeah, and they're all
gonna be looking at you like.
But not only that, but it's like, and now it's just, again, the overall energy, and it's like some brothers don't know any better. I've dealt with those brothers too that just don't get it. Right? They're just like, it's just not. They're just very stuck in their ways, and this is how I'm going to do it. Cool. But then you tap into the brothers when you actually have them sit there and they write some shit that's like, hey fam, you're gifted. Like, this isn't just like you. So why are you shunning yourself? Why are you? Because in those situations, you're as authentic as it gets. So people will they'll eat out of your hand. But if if you're trying to feed them the same shit everyone else is feeding, then why are they going to eat out of your hand? Yeah. But give them what you offer. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that just loop theory as a whole, and what I'm looking, the imprint I want is just good music, quality music.
And one of the things that has been really beneficial recently is that, like, man, it's so dope to just like dive in and like learn, you know, and have time to learn.
Yep.
And one of the things that I've really appreciated, and I think that it resonated with me because you talked about it, like I feel about it, is just like I'm able to enjoy doing it again.
Yep.
You know, one thing that's really been hard though, I told you that I've been sober for 6 years.
Yes, sir.
It's hard to write. You know, like it's a whole different mind frame. Like when I was writing, you know, when you're making a puzzle and like the puzzle pieces fit perfectly and you can feel it. It's just like it fits perfect. And it's just like up until now, I'm finally feeling that again.
Yeah.
Naturally, like being able to write something. And so I wanted to tell you about that because whenever we ran into each other in the hallway and I was like, yo, we should work together. I was also dealing with this writer's block that I had where I was just like, I didn't know how to do it sober.
Got it.
I think I needed to find my rhythm in it.
For sure.
Again.
Yeah. And for me, I think at that point, I in my head had already, I wasn't rapping anymore.
Yeah.
That wasn't. So I didn't have the enthusiasm maybe you would have talked to me a couple years prior to that. Because in my head, I was like, I'm trying to figure what's the next move right now. Like I'm, you know, and me rapping or me writing a verse or anything, even to this day, I will try to give myself that time. And during that time, sometimes I'm like, okay, could I be doing something that's more productive for the unit? Like, what am I really going to do with this verse right now? Like, it's just kind of just self-fulfilling again, right? But sometimes I need it, and so I get it off. But it's, again, in comparison for the majority of my life, how I lived it, I mean, my wife would always say, she's like, I don't know how you come up with all this shit. Like, how do you have all this shit in your head? Like, how do you just and that's the thing. Today, I could sit down and I could come up with shit and like nothing because it's now second nature. But I just don't allow myself that time to do it. But there's nothing for me more fulfilling in those as far as being creative. Like, I'm not thinking of anything else that's happening in the world for that little instance. I don't have any worries. I don't have any concerns. I'm just focusing on the beat, making sure my flow's fucking, you know, seamless and whatever. Like, I'm not so
yeah, man, but I'm excited. If you ever want to work on something, let me know.
For sure, man. Little by little, I've been toying with the idea of working on some stuff. I've actually, these last year, I've been writing more like corridos and stuff.
Yeah.
The Spanish stuff.
Yeah. So that real quick, and I know that your time is precious, and I want to respect that. So there are a couple more questions, but the one question, because you just spoke on it, is like, how did you get into corridos, and what are the impact? Like, how have you felt the reception of that?
For sure, man. I had been in tune these last couple years to just the shift that was happening with the younger generation of Mexican artists, specifically out in Cali, and then just all around. So my nephews put me on. I was paying attention to the music from afar, and I was already fucking with it because a lot of things that I was hearing as an artist in myself, had always been trying to tie like hip hop and Mexican music somehow.
Yeah.
I could never find the producer. I could never find someone else to work with that kind of understood the sounds that were happening in my head. So when these young brothers, the reason I was attracted to it right away is because like, I'm like, all these kids are hip hop kids.
Yeah. Real quick, where's your family from?
Mexico de Nuevo Laredo. Well, my mom's from San Luis Potosí. My dad is from Matamoros, but they were raised in Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas. So we say we're from Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas.
Okay. All right,
so
but go ahead.
Right at the border, yeah. So, again, first music I ever fell in love with, first music I heard at the crib was always Spanish music, corridos, Ramon Ayala, Carlos Jose, all that stuff, right?
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so that's what I listened to first before I listened to anything else. So I grew up with that music always. But yes, in school or in high school, it was always an older genre, right? It wasn't for the youth, so it was never.
It was your chore music.
Yeah, and not only that, but it was like never cool to listen to it, right? It was because hip hop ruled everything, right?
Yeah.
And so being a Mexican American kid, but being exposed to hip hop and being exposed like, yeah, I like the music in Spanish, but look how cool this hip hop shit looks, right? So and how dope it sounds. So I was obviously attracted to that as well. But I always, again, so through my own artistic stuff, I started tapping into the Spanish stuff and all that, trying to bridge those gaps. So then when I started seeing the corrido stuff happen in the younger generation, understanding it and like, again, realizing like, oh, these are hip hop kids that just chose this route instead of the hip hop shit because for whatever reason, right? But it's like, no one's wearing sombreros anymore. Everyone's got, hoodies and Jordans and, everyone's talking how they're the best shit, hip hop, boastful shit, now they're talking, this shit in between records. No other genre does that but hip hop. So it's like, this was to me like, oh, this is just hip hop in corrido version, right? And it's like, and more than anything, I was happy. I think a lot of times there was I don't know if it's maybe not necessarily the generational thing. I don't think sometimes just people for whatever reason choose to deny their culture, right? For whatever reason, we've had a lot of, unfortunately, Mexicanos from certain, because again, we try to assimilate, especially first generations, we're trying to go to college, we're trying to do, some of us assimilate a little too much, right?
Yeah.
And where we try to be too much, and where it's, I don't listen to Spanish music or corrido or knuckles shit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I was never like, I'm proud of who the fuck I've been always. And so to me, it was just second nature. And more than anything, I fucked with the music. I loved the music. I was like, yo, these kids are dope. This shit's dope. Like, and then what brought it home to me was my nephews really started getting into it. My nephews started bringing their guitars. They started learning how to play guitars. They're singing corridos. I'm just like,
yeah,
okay, this is infiltrating everything. Like this isn't just, so I was just like, okay, this is dope. Like I loved everything. But more than anything, like I also felt no one is giving hip hop its props in that circle. Like no one is saying, hey, all this shit a lot of it is coming from hip hop. A lot of it came from hip hop, the styles of this, the that. People are halfway rapping on these corrido beats now and shit like that. Now the corrido guy is also doing trap records in Spanish. So it's like all these lines are being crossed, but no one's acknowledging, no one's actually saying, hey fam, all this shit came from hip hop, but it's like everyone's taking the sauce from it. So I just want to be that the same way as an artist, I was here to bridge that gap. And I felt I was well respected among circles where I could bridge that gap. I want to do it on this side now. I feel like no one is necessarily speaking up on that. No one is giving its credit where it's due. And no one is blending the cultures in a way that I confidently feel we could do it here at Loop Theory. And so that's why I started Loop Theory Internacional. Because again, the reason I started Loop Theory was because I was like, oh, there's a lot of, I started seeing the next generation of Chicago hip hop, right? The guys that came under me were the Chances, the Vic Mensahs, the Sabas, all these guys that somehow figured it out on their own independently. So I was like, okay, cool. This next generation, and then in general, the whole overall consensus around young people was like, oh, I don't want to sign to a label anymore. I want to try to do this shit independently. I could upload my shit now and whatever, right? So I was like, these artists don't want labels. They want business partners. They want managers. They need a team around them. They don't necessarily want to sign to a label. So then that's why I was like, all right, I'm going to start Loop Theory. I'm not going to start a record label. I'm going to start a management company because that's what they need. They need guidance. So same thing it was just as easy to do Loop Theory Internacional because it was the same thing. There's a lot of young grupos. I feel like a lot of times everyone's trying to get a slice from the same pie. You know what I mean? Everyone's kind of, and so I was just like, maybe if I come out from this outside perspective, because I'm not coming from this scene in particular, I'm coming from hip hop R&B world and I'm bringing it over here. I think we have a sauce that's special because everyone else is trying from the other side. Everyone's coming from the corrido side, trying to break into now this other side. And no matter what, it doesn't sound as genuine. Sometimes it doesn't come off as, and so I feel like that's the advantage that we have. But more than anything, I realized the same thing. There was young talent here in Chicago that needed that guidance. So I started writing for my nephews. And so that's where, again, I just kind of got into where I was like, okay, this is dope. Because now I got excited because I was able to do the things that I had been hearing in my head as an artist all those years before, where I was like, oh, now I could do it here. So I was like, cool. So then I started doing that. And then I picked up a group called Generación Especial, and another guy called Es Chicano. Es Chicano does pop, corridos, reggaeton. He does across the board. He's a great artist, producer. And then the guys from Generación Especial, I heard Lalo, se llama Lalo Tumbao. His voice, they're all 18, 19 years old. They're all young men. But I heard him, I mean, I just, right away, I was like, yo, it's fire. Like, and again, man, it's beautiful to see that it took the younger generation to not run away from our culture, but to run to it. And that's why I respected these young brothers and sisters. Because for so many years, we were told that shit wasn't cool, that shit wasn't, so it's like, fam, the older people that should have gotten this and that should have been the ones to like get it, we're shunning it away. It took the younger generation to be like, nah, that's us. I want that. I'm gonna make this shit cool. That shit takes, bro. That shit is, so to me, that's why I'm like, yo. To me, it's an open playing field right now. The same way it was in hip hop. It's this is the first phase of this.
Yeah, you're
this
the first wave.
This is only gonna grow exponentially, and it's only gonna take different styles. The same way there was reggaeton years ago, and it hit where it hit, and then it took years for someone like Bad Bunny to come and to take what reggaeton was and then reinvent the sound and make it fucking worldwide. Is going to be the same shit with this, bro. And I'm going to be in the mix of this. And that's the only difference, is that I feel
you could see it,
the most at peace that I've ever felt with everything that I'm doing, because this is who I am. I don't have to front and fake none of this shit. Man. I am as hip hop and as all this shit as it gets, and I'm as fucking Mexican and as all this shit is. I don't have to fake. And that's why I was giving you the example when I was telling the brother that, you know, about the beats and bar stuff that he, you know, I'm like, you don't want that energy. It's like, why not be able to be yourself? I want to be able to be in an interview and I have to be tough and hard or this because I got this image to uphold. It's like, this is who the fuck I am. Like, I'm good. And so if you're confident in who you are as a person, like, it doesn't matter what another person necessarily thinks of the art or this or that. You just got to do away with that, man. Like, that's why you are who you are. That's why you have taken that chance on yourself to put yourself out there like that, and why other people don't, you know? So stand on what you do, you know? So that's it with the corrido stuff, man. I fell in line with it. I love the music. And like I said, they inspired me. The younger generation inspired me because for a lot of years, we were as older Mexicans, Americans, first generations, a lot of us ran away from it. I did it, but a lot of people didn't, and I could see that shit. And I never understood it because, this is our heritage. This is who we are. This is our culture. This is what our parents, you know, everything was. And it's like, so again, for the younger generation to get it, to be like, no, this is us. Now I'm going to reinvent the sound. No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I respect it. I love it because that's the only way that we're going to evolve, that things are going to change. And it's going to take for younger people to take chances on themselves.
You kind of already touched on this, but like, what advice would you give to somebody that's getting into music or that wants to do the corridos or wants to do the hip hop or just wants to take music and live that lifestyle?
I would say,
or even manage.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. So I would say two things for the artist, for the new artist, for the person wanting to put out music. I would say making sure that you find your voice first. Like, I think a lot of times people nowadays, artists, because you could easily upload a song to YouTube or SoundCloud or anything like that, that you right away think that the first song you record has to be uploaded or some people have to hear it. It's okay to work in your room for a year before you ever put anything. It's okay to work in your room with no one else. Like, it doesn't have to be, you know, and I think just give yourself the opportunity to grow, because it's one of two things. You could grow and develop in front of people, but that could sometimes be very slow, and not everyone's going to stick around with you for that
growth,
development and that growth. A first impression means a lot, like we know, right? So I think just give yourself that opportunity. Don't put that pressure on you that like people are expecting your music to come out. No one is necessarily waiting on it. Like, just trust me, and that's not a bad thing. Like, no.
Yeah, because you could surprise them.
Yes. Why? Imagine if you would have waited a year or two to hone this perfect project and no one knew you did shit. Then when you drop that shit, all the homies are like, what the fuck? This is what you've been working on?
Saba did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. There's people that is like, no, I'm going to perfect my craft. And so that's it. I think for younger people, because I think that line before we could record a song, but it didn't leave our computer because we could burn it on a CD or whatever the fuck, but that was it. Now it's like, yo, I just got to upload a button and that's it. It's up for anyone to hear. So it's like people are hearing the shitty song that the artist probably should have never put out. And that's going to be, well, I'm never going to check his song. This shit was whack.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to wait till he gets good in a year or two. Like, you know, whatever. I'll come back, you know, I'm going to go listen to the shit I do like. So it's like, just give yourself that opportunity as a new artist to find your voice, be comfortable with your music and put out a product that you want to stand behind. Just because you put a verse to a beat, and you're like, oh, it's okay. Like, just it's the same way like the guy who's shooting, you know, fucking baskets at the, you know, at the court. He's not saying he's in the NBA the next day. You know what I mean? It's just like play your position, do what you got to do, put in your work, and so that would be the main thing I think a lot of artists could gain from, because I think we just put pressure on ourselves that doesn't even exist sometimes. And then for the people that want to manage, I would say work with artists who want it just as bad as you do. Work with artists whose music you really, really, really fuck with. Like you have to fucking, yeah, you have to really like the music, because if you don't, then there's no motivation to want to push it. So for me as an artist, that's my as a person with an ear of an artist, that goes first and foremost. I'm in the music business. I want to make sure my product is A1. So, you know, just making sure that, and just obviously make good decisions on behalf of the people that you are responsible for. You know what I mean? Think of them, think of how your actions affect other people, because now you're on their clock, they're on yours. It is a big responsibility. Someone else is putting their career and their life in your hands in a way, right? Because they feel that you could help them navigate this world. So, yeah, you know, just make sure that, yeah, you do good by the people you work. That's it, man. I think you could do good business, do good by people, and still be successful.
How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, man, it's, social media, or my email. Social media is Scheme Navarro, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I think.
How do you spell it?
Scheme is SCHEME, just the way you spell scheme, and then Navarro, NAVARRO. I was for the majority of my artist's life, I went under Scheme. So a lot of my early releases were under Scheme, the stuff on the moment and all that. And then when I started releasing stuff on my own, when I started releasing stuff in Spanish, I made the decision to switch over to Navarro, because I got interviewed at Univision. And the lady said esquema. And I was like, yeah, nah, that's not going to work if I'm going to really be doing the Spanish shit. And at this time I was really tapping into that market. So I was like, let me switch it up. But then I was also older, where I was like, I felt too old to try to come up with a rapper name. Yeah. So I was like, man, I'm going to just use my last name, Navarro. So it sounds kind of cool. All right, fuck it. So I went with Navarro as a name. I went for the last releases that I've had. But yeah, so Scheme Navarro on social media, or booking@looptheoryinc.com is my email. Anything Loop Theory related or anything like that, you can check out looptheoryinc.com. But yeah, man, we're an artist development company, management company here in Chicago. I am here to put the next generation of Chicago music out to the world, help them out, help the artists, just help them learn about the music business, and just have partners that they could build with, man. So when they do walk into these labels and they do walk into these brands for partnerships and things like that, that they have some leverage, that they build shit on their own, and that we're not here waiting for any of these companies to save us. You know what I mean? We're here to build our own shit. Like I told you last time, or I told you earlier too, I don't think we got to destroy anything to build what we're going to build. I think we could do it side by side. Whoever does it, there's a lot of people who don't agree the way things are going right now in the music industry, and the things that we have.
Yeah, streaming is crazy.
So, and that's my thing. The structure works for the people that it does, and it's worked for far too long that's not going to get disseminated or dismantled anytime soon. So it's going to exist. So my thing is just like, cool, let that exist. But I know there's enough people in this world unhappy with that system that if we could side by side build another system that could work just as well for artists, give them the option. And then the ones that want to rock with us will rock with us. And I think that I'm comfortable in doing it. And then another piece I didn't mention is we also do distribution with Loop Theory. So I also, normally people distribute, they have to go through a third party company. They have to go through CD Baby, TuneCore, whatever, right? DistroKid, something to distribute, or one of the boutique distributors, right? We don't. We have our own software. We deliver straight to all platforms. I don't have to go to a middleman. I don't have to go to a third party. I am the party. So not a lot of people in the Midwest, or not a lot of people in general, have access to this. So I'm able to give just distribution options to artists out here as well, as opposed to just managing them. So we're also able to distribute something that Ghazi out in California did with Empire, who's someone who inspired me. So yeah, man, we have a lot that we have to offer. We've built something really great for the city in the last couple of years. I think now these next couple of years, it's going to be just time to show out and show what we've been doing, man, so far.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
For your knowledge, for your experience, your story.
Thank you.
All right, brother. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, no doubt.
So
Appreciate
you,
it.
Rafael Scheme Navarro Jr.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Always representing and really, really fresh MC, but now we know that you're managing and that you're doing incredible things, bro. Thank you very much for sharing your story.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
500 and growing.
Podcast. Dedicated to the underdog, cause I see you working on your craft, getting strong, cause I see you ready to set it off and on, cause I see you correcting all that is wrong, cause I see you dedicated to your craft, read and study the math, making goals and taking a stand, original, so you trailblaze a path, in tune with your inner master plan.
Visit 500andgrowing.com for more creative content.
Thank you for listening to the 500 and Growing podcast. Remember that we have incredible guests that have featured in previous episodes, so please look back in the archives and listen to their inspirational stories. And remember, go to 500andgrowing.com for more creative content.
500 and growing.
Podcast.